You're watching Taste of Victory.
Omnimon is one of the most recognizable Digimon. If Pokemon has Charizard, Digimon has Omnimon. He has extensive support in the TCG and has been in the game since the very beginning in Set 1. Debuting in Digimon the movie, he has become one of the most iconic Digimon, so no surprise there. People that have been playing since the beginning may remember Omnimon Turbo being one of the most popular decks at the time. But how much of that is a vague memory and how much of it holds up? And was it blue-based Omnimon running around or red-based Omnimon? Who knows if his dominance even lasted that long? Let's take a look at Ghosts of Tournaments Past to find out as we ask ourselves, how good was Omnimon actually? Before we get started today, if you'd like to support the channel, I have a TCG Player affiliate link in the description below. Clicking it and buying singles through the tab it opens gives me a small kickback that helps me keep up with building meta decks for the channel. Also, show some love and support to False Swipe Gaming, which is one of the best Pokemon channels on YouTube and a clear inspiration of mine for this video. Omnimon's first card in the TCG back in Set 1 is a level 7 and reads, when Digivolving, choose one of your opponent's Digimon. Delete all of your opponent's Digimon that share a name with it. When attacking, you can unsuspend this Digimon by returning one of this Digimon's level 6 Digivolution cards to your hand. To get to a level 7 back in Set 1, you needed to climb all the way up in a traditional stack of level 3 through level 6. There weren't ways to warp Digivolve back then just yet outside of Beelzemon. To do so takes a lot of turns and resources, and it's fair to say Omnimon's payoff was worth it at the time. In the beginning of the game, removal was expensive. The best removal option was Gaia Force, costing a whole 8 memory. While still useful, in comparison, Omnimon was at minimum removal with a huge body. In the best case scenario, it clears multiple Digimon of the same name. Its when attacking effect to be able to unsuspend and attack again was also important for applying pressure and securing games. Omnimon could only Digivolve from red or blue level 6s for 6 memory, so we would only see these two color decks build around it. Intended dual color decks were not a thing yet, even though Rookie Rush was about to creep up around the corner. In deck building, we saw a lot of decks make Omnimon the main focus, running a lot of cheap vanillas to turbo up into it. Since they have no effects, vanillas in the Digimon TCG usually have lower memory costs for evolution or hard slamming to offset this. Level 3s through level 6s with effects existed, but with the lower power level of the game and limited removal, it was almost universally accepted that it was better to forego effects in the early game in favor of quickly building up to Omnimon. His removal usually set your opponent too far back, and once he hits the field, it's hard to remove him. Your opponent will have to pass you a lot of memory to do so if you are managing your memory well, meaning you can just start building up all over again. Is that all you needed to compete in a format that had purple and black shoved into it that weren't originally in Set 1 in Japan though? Turns out the numbers tell us yes, there's no beating around the bush. Omnimon was by far the most represented deck in Set 1.0 tournament events in English. Towards the end of 2020, Bandai hosted official tournaments through the big tournament organizers Top Cut, Core TCG, and Carta Magica, capped at 250 people. Out of the sizable player pool, we see Omnimon decks routinely taking up the majority of top 8 through top 16 spots and tons of representation in Swiss. In Carta Magica's weekend of tournaments that took place the week ending December 13th, 2020, on Saturday we see Omnimon take up 5 slots of top 8, and on Saturday 3 of top 8. On Core TCG's weekend of tournaments, we see Omnimon took up 6 slots of top 16 on Saturday. And while harder to find, for Top Cut's weekend of tournaments, Omnimon took up 3 of the top 4. Tournament reports will commonly say how they faced 5 to 6 Omnimons on the way up to the top tables. The protection of the breeding area with the speed of vanillas gave the deck a more powerful and consistent payoff than other decks at the time. Green had no really good reliable way to remove Omnimon other than beating over it, so you're relying on Titamon as your top end, which is otherwise not doing much else in a typical game. Yellow's initial card pool in Set 1 was abysmal, and while still able to compete, it had to work much harder. Black was set to become the butt of the joke for many sets, with too defensive of a playstyle that was also very slow. Purple had a few tops here and there, but ultimately relied on setup for a lot of its best plays and was generally outclassed on anything it could do by red and blue. There were 2 ways you could build Omnimon, red or blue. In both cases, the deck focused on the vanillas in the color to turbo up into Omnimon. The benefits to each build was in the color identities. Red is focused on big numbers and huge security checks. With the starter deck Red Greymon in lists, Omnimon could do up to 4 checks by itself with a security attack +1 inheritable effect. Greymon lets Omnimon do 2 checks per attack, and then Omnimon's when attacking effect lets it unsuspend to do 2 more. In the early game, this puts on so much pressure, and in the late game, this could end the game. Red also offered actual removal with the best removal option in Set 1, Gaia Force. blue builds would typically forego removal altogether. Meanwhile, red would run anywhere from 2 to 4 copies of Gaia Force, not just to have a removal option ready in hand, but to also set your opponent back when checked in security if they built Omnimon faster than you. Meanwhile, blue's advantages as a color are in memory, manipulation, and draw power. Hammer Spark, one of the best cards in the entire color, was from the first blue structure deck. Many decks would run this at 4 because seeing enough of it at the right time could help you gain enough memory to digivolve into Omnimon without passing turn, which could be enough to end the game that turn. Taking a quick look over lists, memory tamers were not as common back in set 1.0 as they are now, so using Hammer Spark to choke an opponent to 1 memory was actually a decent play to maintain momentum, even though it probably gets you laughed at nowadays. Other cards, like Leomon, also helped you gain memory. The flexibility blue had in memory management was important to pushing for game. Blue has also traditionally been one of the most consistent colors because of its draw power. Many lists would run Gabumon, which when played gets you a draw. This little dude let you develop board while maintaining hand size, which was uncommon at that time. Upamon, who is largely considered the best egg in the game, period, also lets you draw every time you attacked, once per turn, with its easy condition of an opponent just having a Digimon without sources on the field. Both are strong ways to build Omnimon, so did either really offer benefit over the other, or was it a matter of preference and accessibility, since product was pretty hard to come by at this time? Well, you may have noticed we didn't specify which Omnimons all these topping lists were. Peeling back the curtain, we can see that in Carta Magica's Saturday tournament, top 8 was made of 4 blue Omnimon and only 1 red Omnimon. On their Sunday event, top 8 was 1 blue Omnimon, 2 red Omnimon. In Core TCG's Saturday top 16, there was 2 blue Omnimon and 4 red Omni. At Top Cuts event, 3 of the Omnimon in top 4 were blue with a lone red Omni. Trying to browse through Swiss rounds, we see that the winner of Carta Magica's tournament reported playing around 6 blue Omnimon decks versus 2 red ones. In Top Cuts event, Eggman, who got 3rd place, faced 3 blue Omnimon versus no red Omnimon. While fairly close, blue Omnimon ends up taking the edge over red Omnimon overall. Red Omnimon has huge explosive potential, but it suffers from something red always has: lack of draw power. In a deck focused on climbing, that's pretty important. In set 1, you had more time to dig for pieces, but this still ultimately hurts the deck. Blue Omnimon, on the other hand, is inarguably the most consistent color, and in a game with the variability of security and levels, consistency is king. The draw power in Blue Omnimon helped it reliably see its pieces to climb faster. Typically, these lists did not run removal, partially due to space and partially due to none of Blue's removal being good and having to spend 7 memory just to return to hand. Typically, however, Blue was aiming to end the game before it needed removal anyways. That was the humble beginnings of the game in set 1 though. Does Omnimon Turbo hold up in the next set and beyond? Set 1.5 introduced Imperial Dramon and Shine Greymon, who upped the speed of the game and gave Yellow a viable control method to answer Omnimon. Omnimon was still able to get into top 16s, but it was no longer the best deck in format monster running the scene. The mid-game aggression and control some of the effects Digimon offer now was becoming more valuable than turboing up to a level 7. Omnimon seemed to be just a case of being the best card in a shallow card pool of a new game, and frankly, further results were going to back that up. With set 4, War Greymon Yellow was introduced as the premier deck of the set. Being able to restand and do additional damage while blowing up the opponent's field was huge at this stage of the game. Green also got some great support in Nidhogg, Hidden Potential Discovered, and the new starter deck. These decks were too fast for Omnimon to compete with, and looking at June premiere events from Top Cut and Core TCG completely sealed it out of the top 16. This is around when Rookie Rush started to become a thing too, which could be seen as the final nail in the coffin for Omnimon Turbo. Omnimon does get new support in the following set 5, but taking a look at tournament results from Top Cut, the other deck introduced in set 5 was running the scene. Lord Nightmon took War Greymon's playstyle and turned it up to insane levels. Being able to play Digimon through effects that also blow up your opponent's field was too strong for a majority of decks to compete with. Omnimon's support let it digivolve for a bit less costs and give it DP boosts, but the payoff wasn't what you needed to compete in BT5. This set introduced the Omnimon with the keyword Blitz, however. This card is typically used at the end of OTKs to guarantee the last hit for game. This is actually a fantastic card and is still used to this day in any red or blue deck focused around OTKing. OTK being to beat your opponent in one turn. That is the main way Omnimon lives on though. As a dedicated deck, it's never really seen representation like 1.0 or even 1.5 again. Omnimon lives on as a tech to end games for aggro decks through BT5 Blitz Omni. The latest Japanese set, X4, is introducing new Omnimon support focused around DNA digivolving, so we'll have to see if that deck turns out good, bringing the icon back to prominence. So, how good was Omnimon actually? It had a powerful start, but fizzled out quickly. Omnimon was indisputably best deck in set 1 and was able to get enough tops in 1.5 to prove it was at least a little bit more than just nothing else being good in the shallow card pool of set 1. But quickly after that, the Digimon fizzled out into just a tech card. Even with dedicated support for the lines that DNA Digivolve into Omnimon in the lore, most decks that run those cards build up into an OTK instead of Omnimon like Metal Garurumon X and Black War Greymon. Level 7s nowadays need to be game winning or explosive on the turn they come in, and while Blitz Omni kind of accomplishes that, allowing it to keep seeing play, the first Omnimon has gone by the wayside, and other cards like Omnimon X are one of tech choices. However, he is one of the most iconic Digimon of all time, so I'm sure it's only a matter of time until one of his many forms comes back into the spotlight. Thanks for watching. Finding past tournament results for this video was way harder than I expected since archiving and distribution of this kind of info wasn't really a big priority back then. I had to dig through Facebook groups to get results. So I really hope the archiving of this game's history becomes more of a concern now that it's over 2 years old in the West. I'd love to include larger statistics like conversion rates if tournaments start releasing the entire roster of decks entered into a tournament. Limitless TCG is a really great platform to be able to get that kind of info. And after 2 years, I finally learned how to say Omnimon correctly. I guess that's what happens when everyone you know growing up watches Pokemon instead. Consider this my late Christmas gift to you guys. Let me know if you would like to see more of these kind of videos, and let me know which Digimon we should look at next. I'll be checking out for your suggestions. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this new type of content on the channel. Let me know what you thought. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, remember to stay hungry until you get a taste of victory.